Okay, so I wanted to take a minute to talk about the roll-in with Michael here. Number one, I like the fact that his dad's really encouraging and positive about the process. It's a difficult process for a young kid, especially somebody as young as Michael. So I wanted to kind of start in the bottom here and remember that when we move with the throwing arm. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find a lefty, but I like the performer on the bottom here. I like the way he moves through his roll-in here. And you'll see Michael start with his left foot. The difference is Michael's taken several steps, okay? Whereas the player on the right, the player on the bottom here, or I should say the player in the blue, is taking maybe one, okay? So the first thing I would do is simplify things. We're going to take one step. We don't need to take all these steps. To me, this is kind of blending the walking wind-up into the roll-in, okay? The whole purpose of the roll-in, you might think it's to be a lower half drill, but really it's an upper half drill. And I want to get to where he is ready to throw, which is about here. Okay, so we'll say this is his first step, all right? So this is where we're at. We're kind of at the same point in time here. I wish I had a side view. Unfortunately, I don't. You'll see. Good. Okay, so the purpose of this drill, you might be surprised to learn, is to minimize lower half rotation and maximize what we're doing with the upper half, particularly stacking. We talk about this a few times. Even when we hit, we talk about staying behind our midline and stacking our weight. Pitching has some parallels to hitting, and this is one of them. So you'll see that the player in the blue here, down here, okay, you'll see that his body remains stacked, which is to say kind of behind a midline here. You'll see that this is probably his midline, and he's behind it. I should have used different colors. I apologize. I'm still learning these cursors, not very good at these cursors. And you'll look up here, and Michael is a little forward, okay? And he's also using a little bit too much of his lower half. So when we're talking about roll-ins, let's keep the emphasis on this stacking part and keeping him behind. One verbal cue that you can help him with is to make sure he drives his chest up and out. One of the things that I like that Michael does is he gets very good extension. The other part of the roll-in, see, this is kind of, part of me, there's some things he's doing wrong here, but part of me, there's so many things he's doing right. So, it's tough. When we're correcting him, we need to emphasize what he's doing well by tricking him into thinking, that what he's doing that isn't so well it can be corrected. So we'll have to let him go with this extension and probably focus more on staying stacked behind his body. And so what I would suggest, and I'm sorry if this video is getting a little lengthy, is emphasize him keeping his chest up, okay? Not worrying too much about the lower half. He seems to be bringing that lower half up and over. He doesn't need all of that. He just needs to walk into it. So walk into it, come up and rotate, but it's really just a continuing step. You'll see that in the bottom there, okay? Everything he does on top just needs to stay a little bit back, and I think we accomplish that by focusing on keeping the chest up and arching ourselves a little bit this way, as opposed to he's either straight up and down and maybe even moving a little bit forward there, okay? So one of the things that I'm looking for, next time is teaching him how to stay a little bit more stacked where he's not so far forward. This kind of looks like a walking wind-up without picking up his leg a little bit more. And I'm sorry about that little line down there. So instead of focusing on picking up that lead leg, okay, he just needs to walk and throw. And when he walks and throws, focus on keeping the chest up. So I'm going to move down here to the bottom now. We're going to focus on keeping the chest up right there. And I think by doing that, he'll be able to stay stacked and then focus on pulling down, which the thrower on the bottom does there. But do you see the extension that the thrower has here in the bottom? You see that with Michael there. That extension is very similar. So it's kind of a catch-22. We want Michael to stay you know, stacked, but we don't want to lose this extension, which is a very important part of throwing with high velocity. So one of the mechanical keys to doing that is that extension. So we don't want to rob him of that. We just have to remind him to go chest up and then pull down. And I think the best solution is for me to spend some time with him tomorrow working on this very movement here. But I understand the frustration with the movements. They are complex. They are difficult. But that's why we have so much time together in the off season to perfect them. And believe me when I tell you that the work that he's doing that's good movement right there. Good hip drive. I mean, that right there on the surface, I guess let me finish my previous thought. The work that he's doing is way over his head for a 7-8U player. But that extension right there is very good. And what we're going to see from Michael eventually is that drive right there, which is very good. He'll begin to turn around this leg a little bit. Okay? And he kind of does it not so bad there. He's still coming a little bit forward. They're really good pitchers, and this fella here does it relatively well, but not terribly good. They'll rotate into the opposite base. So it would be the third baseline for Michael. For the righty, it would be the first baseline. But, again, I appreciate, I understand and appreciate the complexity of what we're asking Michael to do, but I ask for a little bit of patience with it because I'm reluctant to overcorrect what a athlete is naturally doing because I don't want to rob them of, them being an athlete or them being, creative with their movements. When you do that, I think you get into a slippery slope of overcoaching. And as you know, that's not me. I give them tasks and ask them to complete them, and their body figures out the best way for them to do it. And I think Michael's on that path right now. I would do a couple of things. Again, not to be repetitive, but I would shorten the distance that he walks, and I would focus on keeping that chest up and keeping his body stacked behind his midline. That's true of when we hit, although he's been crushing the ball lately, and that's not an issue for him when he hits. Based on this video, I'm saying that he is a little bit forward with his midline there. And you'll see that the difference between the 2 points in time where he's a little bit disconnected here, and this guy on the right is not. And that's kind of where we want Michael to be. Okay? I hope that was I kind of rambled a little bit there, but there's so many things in what I see from Michael here that I don't want to take. I guess the challenge for us both you as his dad and me as his coach, is we don't want to take the natural athleticism away from him by being a little bit too technical with what we're asking him to do in these drills. So we're going to have to get creative, and I'll think about some things before tomorrow's session where we'll work on getting him stacked. And I think I need to take some more video tomorrow when I'm with him to help him, to help me rather, help him with his mechanics, particularly with this movement here. But again, all things being equal, he's way, way ahead of the typical, youngster his age with these kind of advanced mechanics here. So, that good. I mean, that finish right there is something I'm trying to get my 15-year-olds to do. Look how far over his foot and his head is. I mean, that's just phenomenal for a kid that's not even 10 years old yet. So I think a little perspective too, we want him to continue to make gains, but I think, we need to appreciate where he is and, be careful about overcoaching. We want this to be fun for him. We want him to think that, or to know rather, he doesn't have to think it because it's true. We want him to know that he's way ahead of the curve and making gains every week because he is, even if they're not the rate that maybe we want them to be. But that's good external rotation. And look at that forearm layback right here. I mean, excuse me. The forearm layback here is phenomenal. And you'll see it if you look at the guy on the bottom, on the down here at a different point in time, and this guy's 18 years old. So if we move back in time to where Michael was here, that's the same angle there versus this guy's here, and here. Very, very impressive. So again, I think that we'll work on the stacking, and we'll work on maybe shortening up the steps, and maybe that will help with the rolling a little bit. And we'll emphasize a couple of new things tomorrow in this specific movement, and hopefully that'll clean up some of the questions and the issues that you're having. But I remain impressed with where he is. Both he and Nate have been really, really phenomenal in the last few weeks, and I've been impressed with the rate of improvement that I've seen from both of them, both hitting and throwing the baseball. That's it.